Well, hello there, and thank you so much for stopping by the In Trive Talks, a place for the inspired, thriving tribe. My name is Ciera Payton. I am the host and CEO of the In Trive, and I'm so happy to have you here today because I created this space to help artists and aspiring creatives navigate their creative journey. And so what this whole thing is all about is providing tips and tricks and tools and resources for you to help make the journey a little bit smoother and better. And so while you're here right now, go ahead and take a moment to hit the like and subscribe button down below, so you can stay updated on all of our offerings here on the channel and on the podcast. All right. So I am so excited to bring on our guest today because in addition to the In Tribe, I have also founded a nonprofit organization called the Michael Sawyer Foundation. And over at the Michael Sawyer Foundation, we provide free and low-cost arts education programs to youth and families who have been impacted by the incarceration of a loved one or have been indirectly or directly impacted by the justice system. And so what we do over there is we work with some incredible, amazing artists, writers, directors, actors, animators, storytellers, scriptwriters, all of the above, to have them come in and help work with the youth over there at the Michael Sawyer Foundation to create some amazing content. All right. And so one of the people that we have over there at the Michael Sawyer Foundation, who is just an incredible artist, is Mr. Alex Ubokudom. He is an incredible teaching artist, but he's also an actor and a writer and a producer. And he has agreed to come on over to the In Trive Talks to share a little bit about his journey. So before I bring him on though, I want to share just a little bit more about Alex and a little bit about his background. So here we go. Alex Ubokudom is an actor, writer, producer, professor of acting, and forever student. Alex has performed off-Broadway at the Signature Theater, Playwrights Horizon, the Billie Holiday Theater, and Barrow Group Theater. He was also a mainstay improv and sketch performer at New York's Upright Citizens Brigade and the People's Improv Theater. Recently, Alex moved to Los Angeles, where he works as professor of acting at Chapman University while continuing his work in TV, film, and theater. He also hosts a wildly popular podcast called The Frogs, where theater talk meets barbershop talk. Alex trained at the American Conservatory Theater, the Michael Chekhov Association, Kennedy Brown Studios, and a National Alliance of Acting Teachers. So without further ado, let me bring on Mr. Alex Ubokudom. Hey, Alex Ubokudom, what's up, man? Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Are you kidding me? Thank you for having me. I'm good. What is this? It's officially hump day. Right?
Hump day.
Mm-hmm. It's a very sunny hump day. That's cool.
Finally.
We getting some rain up in here, but yeah, I mean everything, all systems are go with me. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Just been a little busy, but who isn't these days? I feel like no complaints. Just trying to go with the flow with everything. Keep the ship running smoothly with Michael's daughter, with acting, with life, and yeah. So, that's pretty much it.
That's a maven.
A maven? Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I don't think I know what that means.
It's like a media maven. Somebody, I think it's somebody who's like somebody within the world of media who's like an executive, a boss, like these people who like create things, like like Barry Gordy would be like a.
Okay. All right. Look, no shame in my game. I didn't know what that word meant. I've seen it before, but I'll take it. I like it.
There's also a chance that I didn't properly define it. So
I don't know. It sounds right.
That's my talent. That's my talent is making it sound like it makes sense.
Nothing wrong with that. It's just words. Words are just sounds. Who cares what they mean?
Yeah.
All right, so I want to dive in because we're about to just make this the Alex Ubokudom show for the next, 50 minutes. So I want to know about you. And the first thing I want to know about is zodiac sign. Do you know your zodiac sign?
What's your zodiac sign?
Yes.
What's your zodiac sign?
Do you know your big three? Your sun, rising, and moon sign, or give it to me. Let me hear it.
So I feel as though ever since I came out to Los Angeles, I'm probably having this conversation like twice a week, and I still haven't. So I know, of course, my regular sign. Which one's the one? The
sun sign, yeah.
Okay, so I know that's Scorpio. Like that's the one. I was born November 5th, so I'm Scorpio.
Okay.
And then I think the sun sign. That's the sign that the time you were born.
The
right?
rising, I think the rising is around the time you were born. Yeah.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that's Cancer.
Okay.
The other one, I don't know.
Okay, the moon sign.
The moon's, I don't know. I don't
We'll
know. The
have to
shadow.
figure that out. I'd be
Yeah.
curious. I'd be curious. Okay, so what are some things that people say about Scorpios that you feel is like, absolutely, that's me, Alex to the T?
Ooh, no, this is a family podcast. No,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it is.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
know what people say about Scorpios, so.
yes, yes. But no, but I mean, here was what I say. I'm passionate. Scorpios are passionate. Scorpios are very deep. You know,
Mhm.
they say still waters run deep.
Okay.
We are very, they say decisive. It's interesting. There are some times when I'm not as decisive, but when I think about, you know, because I like to actually get a committee of people's opinions on things. Like, you know,
Mm.
I'm like a league of rivals type of person. Like I want to hear from a lot of people. But in terms of the things that I want to do, you know, in terms of being able to create things, like I'm very like, okay, this is what we need to do. This is where we need to go. This is what I'm going to do at least, and this is where I'm going to go. But yeah, the biggest thing is passion and depth.
Mm.
I can be very what's the word for it? It's not because I'm not like a reclusive person that goes deep. I can get reclusive, but it's not that. But it's just that any moment I'm able to kind of connect with, or I want to talk about the deeper things in life, the more profound things. I want to think about those things. You know, when I'm on dates, like I can't really do small talk. You talk about me, you're gonna
Mm.
end up talking about you're gonna end up talking about like your you know your childhood trauma. That's just
Yeah.
how I roll.
I feel like, yeah, I feel like I've heard that about Scorpios, that very introspective,
Yes,
very
that's the word.
the general consensus of water signs is that y'all are pretty sensitive. So would
I'm
you
sensitive.
say that that is kind of
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I
true?
mean, and I'm a proud sensitive too. You know,
Okay.
I don't. Yeah, I'm incredible. I had a teacher that told me, she was like, your sensitivity is your superpower, right? You know,
Nice.
and I think that as somebody, if I may, like someone who's very masculine presenting, you know, sometimes that can like throw people in my level of sensitivity. But it also, you don't get the passion without the sensitivity.
Yeah.
They both work in tandem. That's why. So, you know, my willingness to want to like step out front and advocate for people is the same thing that makes me go like, I didn't like what you said to me.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
know?
that makes sense. I like it. I mean, I think that that is like, if you're an artist and you're not sensitive or vulnerable to some extent, like, I don't know, like, how you gonna art,
Yeah.
you know? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know how some people do it. I mean, I don't, you ever meet people who are really, really talented, but then you meet them and you're like, oh, you're not as like you're not as like maybe compassionate, or like as in your life you're not as empathetic as you are in your work. Have you ever met people like that?
I'm really thinking, it's weird because I probably have, I feel like I have, but then because I'm an empath, like I understand
Mm,
why. So, you know
mm,
what I mean? So I'm kind of like, oh, if you're not, like, I understand, like, if somebody's like not being compassionate or empathetic or seeming pretty cold, sometimes, like, yeah, that'll hurt my feelings, but then I'll be like, oh, I get it. Like, oh, that person probably has something going on, or it's probably not the right time, or I don't know, like, that's just kind of how my mind works with stuff like that. But
similar. That makes me think also like what are your signs, and then how do they?
oh, okay.
Mm,
So my zodiac sign, I'm Aquarius. Rising, it has been to be determined because I don't know the exact time I was born, but I looked it up before, in terms of like what I could be according to, like, what my dad says, so I could be Capricorn rising, and Leo moon feels pretty right. So,
mhm.
so yeah.
So the moon is like that's where the moon was when you were born.
Mm-hmm.
How the
Yeah.
freak do you know what the moon is when you're born?
It's it's all tracked in the sky. Like there's trackers and everything. Like, and a lot of times, it goes back to like the farmer's almanac. I hope I said that right. But like, to know what type of moon it is, because it, has something to do with like how things grow and, the harvest moon, the winter
Mhm.
moon, all that type of stuff. So that stuff's been tracked for thousands of years. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I could look up my birthday, January 26th, 1986, and I probably shouldn't have said my year, but but
Mhm.
I you can look up where the moon was on that day. So yeah.
Well, you know what? Usually, I used to hear about Mercury retrograde. You're just talking about
Mm-hmm.
that. I used to think it was a bunch of mumbo jumbo, but now I'm like, no, I kind of think that things are kind of being strange, and people are acting kind of weird, and stuff is kind
Look,
of happening.
my whole philosophy on all of it is, if the moon can control the tides like water, you know, I feel like there's some merit to planets affecting us in some kind of way. But I would say, as much as I like asking this question, because it's a great, way to start a conversation, I do feel like I want to move away a little bit from astrology sometimes, because I do think that we, especially out here in LA, like you said, a lot of times people make that be like the dictating or, determining factors of their lives. And I'm a big believer in like, no, you can chart your own path, but
Right.
I do think that astrology stuff is fun. And I do think that there's things about it that can help you kind of like define your personality or like learn a little bit
Mhm.
about your personality. But I'm not going to be the one that's like, oh, it's December 11th, 2030, and, the world's going to end. Like, I'm not, I'm like, no,
Yeah,
like,
because there are those people online. Yeah, I see them.
And then like Mercury retrograde, the only thing that I think with that, and I try not to give it too much power, but the big thing that they say with Mercury retrograde is that it affects technology. And so, to get ahead of it, make sure you back up your stuff, like, hard drives or whatever, if you're a writer or something. And so right now it's Mercury retrograde. Our power went out this morning. The internet was acting weird yesterday, like stuff like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, that kind of tracks for me, but I'm not going to let it like run my whole life. So
Hmm.
I don't know,
Mm.
you know.
No, no, I hear that. Makes sense.
Okay, well, cool, cool. All right, so more about you. All right, I want to know a little bit about your cultural upbringing, where you're
Uh-huh.
from, how did that all inform you to become the artist that you are today?
It's everything. I mean, I'm sure with everyone, but when I really look back at it, it's like it informs so much of me. So I am born to Nigerian parents, so I'm Nigerian American. They came over here in the late 70s. They are a smaller tribe called the Yanang, like a very, very small tribe. I'll get back to why that is important later on. And I grew up in the Midwest. Ostensibly, I grew up in the Detroit metro area, and
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Indiana, but I moved to Detroit when I was like three. So that's home for me. And
Okay.
Detroit, we about to say something.
No, I
Hmm?
just saying,
Yeah.
okay, I like it. I
Okay.
like
Yeah.
it.
So Detroit at the time when we were coming up, Detroit was like 94% African American. It was like a chocolate city. One of them, Detroit. DC was another one that they would call, a chocolate city. So, we ended up being these, but there wasn't a big black immigrant population. There weren't
Mm,
a lot of, Caribbeans or, there weren't a lot of African expats like they would be in places like New York or places like DC or places like even like Houston. So we ended up growing up very like assimilating really to African American culture. Like I was going home practicing how to say certain things. Right. So
mm,
then I could come to school and, feel as though that we didn't feel targeted. So that always made us feel a bit like we were on the outside, and just also just the values of our parents. They just didn't see the value in certain things. Some of the things were great in terms of material things. Like they didn't see the value of any type of design or anything. They didn't see the value of getting Nikes or getting polo shirts or anything like that. So we didn't end up getting that. So we would get roasted a lot when we would go to school. But but what that ended up doing also, it spurred a type of like independent type of thinking. Being kind of allergic to like groupthink and just
mm-hmm.
going with the herd. Now sometimes that can also lead to like a bit of contrarianism that I'm working on myself. But yeah, so all those things really, it did make me feel kind of initially lost and then like an outsider. But then as I started to kind of, later on find myself, it made me that power, that empathy power we talked about. Like that's what it created. It's very, very easy for me to look at things like, okay, well, I'm looking at this way, but how might this person be looking at it? And I'm very curious about these other things because I always felt like outsider. I always felt like somebody who was, working within the in between. And then and what I learned later on in terms of this very small tribe that my parents came up in, that I used to think it was just all Nigerian Americans that had these particular values, and they definitely have values that are specific Nigerian, but also they are like provincial people who come from like a smaller village. So that like lended itself to a kind of a very kind of like impulse to make sure that they were just kind of nervous and anxious about a lot of things, and then so that kind of sheltered us in a little bit. But that also, for me, what that did is, it kind of spurred my imagination, and it just made me want to go out and experience things and see things, and and yeah, and kind of chart different avenues. That's how it worked with me. It didn't necessarily work for all my brothers that way, but it worked out for me that way. So as I said, it's my upbringing so much informs the things that I produce the creatively. Yeah.
So how many brothers do you have, and where are you in the family lineup?
I have three brothers, so there's four of us. There's four boys, and I am the third. So I'm a middle child, and I'm a classic middle
I'm a
child.
middle child too. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's I think definitely like there are parts of my personality that are very Scorpion, right? But I'm the middle child thing is like the thing that I think one of the things that's like the biggest ways to shape my personality.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I wonder. Okay, we got to circle back to that because I want to hear a little bit more. But I want to just go back because I've always found it really fascinating people that come like that have immigrant parents that come to America and the different values that they teach their kids versus like what American kids are taught. I had a really, really good friend growing up. She's Nigerian. Her name's Igorji Okori. Shout out to her. And I just always loved going to her house. And I just remember like, and I guess some of it is just part of just being a kid, right? Like whatever your parents say, sometimes you're kind of like not with it. You're just like, oh, my parents are whack or whatever. But it was just like from the food and just everything like about her family and her mom I just loved, but she was just like, oh, that's dumb, that's stupid, like she hated her name and just like all these things and stuff. And like I look back at that and I'm like, man, like she just was, I don't know, I just thought that her whole culture and everything was just so cool. And so I just bring all of that up to say that when you were young, you said that you kind of, understood some of the values, but were there any moments, obviously I'm sure being, made fun at school, did you care about that stuff, or was it just something where you just had a whole different sensibility because of your parents around that?
No, I very much so cared about it. And I very much so just wanted to be your kid. You want to be like everyone else. And, we grew up in a time like that. It's different now because I just think the world's more connected. It's more global. And even though, of course, we are dealing with the political situation we're dealing with right now. But I do think also, I think the political situation is a result of the fact that it actually is a bit more of inclusivity and, impulse about different cultures and different places because we're so connected. You can be connected to somebody here in Los Angeles. It could be connected to somebody in Sri Lanka or something like that. But it wasn't like that when we were growing up. It was a very, we grew up and still, I was born in the 80s, so that's Reagan's America. And then that kind of like that whole, it was just very, very, assimilation was very big, even big with our parents. Like the reason I don't speak the native tongue is because they wanted to make sure that we, were speaking English. The reason my name is Alex and not Ataisian is because they didn't want us to be, made fun of, or didn't want us to be targeted. So yeah, I was very much so. I didn't. Unfortunately, I didn't see a lot of the value in our culture, in Nigerian culture growing up. It didn't take me to. I was all the way. I started a little bit in college, but honestly, it wasn't to grad school where I was working on. It's just really weird that I was working on this particular play. I was working on Caucasian Chalk Circle, an audition for Caucasian Chalk Circle, and I was trying to get to a place where I felt like I was grounded and I couldn't. And for whatever reason, it dawned on me. I was like, oh, because for 24 years, I've been living a lie, because there was this whole part of me that I had not really investigated and like integrated into my identity and my personality. And so that kind of set me on the course. And what's interesting, we're going to talk about this later on, I guess, but one of the highlights of my career was the fact that right when I got out of school, I actually played in this movie about like a Nigerian-American kid growing up in
Oh,
Alaska who was
wow.
navigating identity, you know?
Whoa.
Uh,
Oh, that's so cool. Sorry, I'm like I'm like, whoa.
uh,
But no, like I that's but okay, we can segue into you becoming an artist, but I don't know, I just think that's the beauty of creativity and art, right?
mhm,
Like it allows us to really explore deeper depths of ourselves and even like, to tie it into Michael's daughter, I guess, like the stories that we tell about ourselves versus like what's the truth or how can we shift our stories, right? I just think that that's really fascinating. I mean, yeah, I'm just thinking about, I don't know, like what would that be like, if I were to walk in those type of shoes, right? Like,
mhm,
coming from a completely different continent, from a different culture, going to America, kind of like hiding that, for so long, but then having a movie be the thing that like breaks it out of you a little bit or like helps you
mhm.
explore it. So,
Yeah, and this again, that this is how sometimes you can feel. I think the child of an immigrant, or a young immigrant that comes to a place like the United States, I'm guessing anywhere. Like one of the things that unfortunately you can adopt is shame, feeling
mm,
shameful about certain things, shameful about the culture because you're always trying to hide a part of yourself. And then on the flip side, once you start realizing, oh no, I actually have been cutting off myself to, through my culture, through my heritage, my ancestors, then there's the reverse shame, feeling shame that you did that. And you're talking about the empathy. Like it took me I spent a long time just looking through the eyes of my parents and what it must be like, and especially my mom. She was 17, 18 when she came here.
mm, wow.
Again, a girl from not. She wasn't from. She wasn't Igbo or Yoruba, which are like the bigger tribes and like they're like the more within the more cosmopolitan spaces, right? This is a village girl who travels all the way to the most powerful nation in the world, and she just has to figure stuff out. And she used to
Mm,
talk about, and she would work. She was in Terre Haute, Indiana, you know, which is incredibly white,
mm.
and she had to. The first job she had was working at Wendy's, and she was at the they put her at the poor child. They put her at the driving window,
Oh
and people
God.
would just like curse her out and tell her to go back to her country, and
Oh.
you know, and to just do all these things. And she'd go home every single day and cry. And the amount of like the fortitude it takes for someone to do that. I'm like, oh, man, I don't. Of course, I could do it at 17, but because you do what you have to do. But I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine being in that circumstance.
Gosh. So yeah, I mean the empathy, I can see where it plays a big part in you. And
Mhm.
I wonder too, at what point in your childhood did you start to take a liking to, performing or artistry or creativity? How did that, I don't know, like, because to my understanding, when children of immigrants come over, getting into the arts is probably like the last thing parents, want you to do.
Mhm.
And your mom's telling you these stories about when I came here and the things I did and the sacrifices and I dealt with this and the racism and this. At what point were you like, yo, ma, I'm gonna go be an actor? Like, and was there a moment in your childhood too that kind of lit a fire inside of you to even consider that?
Mhm. I hope what I'm going to say doesn't come off as offensive at all, but I feel
No.
very similar. I feel very similar actually to when I hear about people who are like part of the LGBTQ community, QI community
Mm,
when they're younger,
mm,
QIA community, LGBTQIA community, because it's like they knew that they had a performer on their hands. Like I was probably performing in the womb. My first memory, honestly, my first thing I remember is I don't know how old I was. I don't know, I was like 3 or something like that. But I was going to the kitchen and trying to get one of those wooden spoons and like as a microphone to pretend to be Michael Jackson,
Oh my God.
yeah, and because my first memory is like the Motown 25 performance. Now I wasn't that was 83, so but I think they were watching the video of it, and that's the first thing that like I remember. So I was always performing, wanting to sing, wanting to dance. I didn't really acting wasn't something I even considered. I didn't even know it was a thing you could do
Mm.
until like later on, right? But the want to the need to express and honestly to be like seen, middle child stuff, yeah, the need to
Yep.
be seen
Mm.
was that was always with me. Always with me. When I was always singing or dancing for somebody. And in terms of yeah, the that pushback from the immigrant parents, yeah, that was definitely there. That was definitely there. But again, there are these moments. Again, this is why I say it's similar to me that with stories that I've heard of people who, gay or lesbian or so on and so forth. There are these moments that you have I would have when my parents would see me performing something, right? And before they would just be like, you should be a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer and this, and you need to do this. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Blah, blah, blah. But then they would see me performing something and then they would kind of get quiet and they'd be like,
Mm.
oh, he's good, or he's like, that moved me, huh? And they would like show it to their friends and the other Nigerian Americans, and they all would be like, that's him? Wow. But then they would go back to telling me to be a doctor or lawyer or an engineer. So, and then as I got later on, it was just eventually they were like, he's just going to do this. This is what he's going to do.
Around what age was that though? And like, was it after high school or during high school that they just kind of was like, all right, let him do his thing?
It was, this is very dramatic actually. It was 22 and I graduated from University of Michigan and from college, and I didn't know what to do. And what I realized again, this thing
Did you
about
study arts, like drama at University of Michigan?
no, I studied communications, but I did minor in black theater. There was a black theater minor
Oh
there that
wow,
was
okay.
done by this incredible, just a trailblazer of a woman, Glenna Dickerson, who's passed away. She was the
Mm.
second black woman to direct on Broadway.
Wow.
We were just so gifted to be able to be taught by her. But I didn't know what I was gonna do, and I didn't realize now I'm older. I'm realizing that like that has a lot to do with when you have these first generational people who go to college. I wasn't the first person in my family to go to college, but just like
Hmm.
there's just like a type of institutional knowledge that you don't get, that you don't really know like how to navigate or how to get to the places you want to get to. But I started substitute teaching
Mm.
at my old I was in where I grew up, South of Michigan, and I was substitute teaching at the grade schools, the high schools, the elementary schools, and the middle schools, and I was miserable.
Mm.
I would go, and sometimes I would just be like, go to the bathroom and throw water on my face, and just be like, what in the world? Why am I here? Because it just felt like, for me, it's not this, but for me, I just felt like it was like I was regressing. Like I felt like I was just
Mm.
going backwards. And then I went to go visit my friends who went to New York to do music, and I missed my flight to come back. And I used to always I was very, very anxious growing up for a variety of reasons. And I would like miss flights and do all these things. And my mother got really upset with me, and she was like, "Yeah, you need to come back." And she's like, and I was just like, "No, I'm not. I'm just gonna stay
Mm.
out here. I'm supposed to be here. This is where I'm supposed to be."
Wow.
And then a lady from the church, Miss Cheryl, I love her to this day. She was kind of like a surrogate mother to my mother. My mom was complaining to her about what I was doing. He's going out there and he wants to act, he wants to do all these things. And Miss Cheryl said, don't you hold that baby back. Don't you do that. He has to go out
Mm.
there. Don't you put those shackles on him. Let him be out there. That's where he's supposed to be. And every single time I go back
Wow.
to Detroit, I go right up to her and I give her a big hug and she's, "How you doing, baby? Where you at now? You in
Mm.
New York or you in LA or whatever?" And my mom told me that she acquiesced. She was like, "I know, no, this is what you're supposed to be doing."
Wow. Oh, thank you, Miss Cheryl. We
Yeah,
need
Miss
those people in our lives.
Cheryl.
I interviewed someone else too, Eddie Liu. He's an actor and immigrant family and same thing. Like, his dad was really like holding him back and it was actually a family friend that was like, do you want to live the rest of your life in regret, or do you want to like go after your dreams? And he was like, all right, I'm going to go after my dreams. And so, shout out to those people that give you that one little push out of the nest, or your mother's push out of the nest to let you go and let you do your thing. So you go to New York, Miss Cheryl, talk to your mother, and you're hanging out with your friends that do music. What happens next for you? Where do you get your footing in the world of stepping into being an actor and an artist?
The thing about me is that, and to this day, I'm like this. I'm not always the most organized, but I'm driven. Right? I'm not always the most like, planning things out, and I'm trying to get actually better with that. I would definitely plan things out. I definitely will have a plan. That's not it. But I'm just not the
Don't
most.
worry, you're not in trouble.
Yeah. I'm just well, it's just the stories we tell us about ourselves. The stories we tell about yourself.
Yeah. You're right.
But yeah, I am very much so like, if I want to do something, I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure out how to do it. I'm going to figure out the steps to take to get there, and I'm going to take those steps. Right. It might seem chaotic while I'm doing it, but I will be on that path. And so when I was over there, I just was like, okay, what I need to do in New York, I was like, I need to figure out some way to, like, some pipeline. I didn't say it, that wasn't what I was thinking, but I was like, I need to be some type of institutional way to be able to A, get training, and B, get like some type of like networking, community. And so I started, I was temping at in Nickelodeon, and then at night, I would just go and and I would go and I would like go through different theaters. And there was one of the, within the Black theater movement, there was a theater called the New Federal Theater. That was founded by Woody King Jr. in Detroit. And I walked in there one day and I talked to him. I told him I was from Detroit. He was like, yeah, you could start taking classes here. So I started taking classes there, and then I started doing like off-Broadway theater here and there. And it was like really exciting time when I think about it, like just kind of figuring things out. And Professor Dickerson, who I mentioned before, she was like, you need to get training. You need to go to grad school. So I went and, I did the thing called the Erdas, which was like a collection of different like schools that was in these places. And then I auditioned for NYU and Yale and ACT. And Ciera, when I tell you, when I walked in the room to ACT, the audition, they were auditioning at NYU, but when I walked into their room, it was like the sun started shining brighter, and I was like, I'm supposed to be there. I'm supposed to be at that school. I just knew it. And then apparently when I left, they said the same thing, like, he's supposed to be at the school. He's supposed to be here, And so I, ended up getting into ACT.
And for those of you who don't know, American Conservatory Theater. Yes.
The American Conservatory Theater. We performed on the Geary stage, classical conservatory, right? And and it's school that Denzel went there, Annette Bening went there, Danny Glover went there, Anika Noni Rose went there. It's a very, very heralded school, and you get in there, and there's the journey of being Black and navigating those spaces, which was very, very interesting.
But don't know.
But what I had, the greatest teachers in the world were there, and even more than that, just fellow artists that was the first time, Ciera, where I felt like I belonged, and I felt like, I don't actually feel like an outsider anymore. And till this day, I still work with those people. Toby Wyndham, who was my co-host in The Frogs, I met him there, and that's a whole story behind that and how we met. And that is where I got my bones, and that's where I got my chops and trained. And then after I got for ACT, I went back to New York, and I was there for 11 years and doing the whole everything. Auditioning, theater, films, so on and so forth. Started producing my own work over there, and then I got a job at Chapman University, and I came out here. That's 3 years ago. So that's what brought me here today.
Well, hey there. If you're enjoying this conversation, like I know you are, then I have some additional offerings for you. Head on over to the In Trive and sign up on our mailing list. There, you not only get first dibs on meetups, workshops, and special events tailored to our community, but you'll also get a special discount code on the Creative You course. Now, this course is all about helping you to level up and elevate your creative career. Because listen, I've been in this business now for nearly 2 decades, and I've experienced all the highs and lows, and I've developed so many tools to navigate those, and now I'm sharing them with you. So go to theintrive.com/cultivate and check out the Creative You course. And last but not least, just for tuning in and signing up, I'm giving you a freebie. It's our In Trive Hive Level Up Guide. It's a special daily guide for practicing ways to be your optimum creative self. Because listen, an all-around healthy artist is a thriving artist, and that's what we're all about here. So check out our site, sign up for our newsletter, get a special discount code for the Creative You course, and take off with your new In Trive Hive Level Up Guide. It's new beginnings here, and so let's get inspired and thrive only at the In Trive. See you soon. Now, back to the episode.
Yeah, so what a journey. And I love that you went to ACT. I visited there. That's how I met Tyrone, which is Tyrone works with Michael Sorter Foundation. And, it's been a great journey working with him. And,
Shout out
here we
Tyrone,
are.
yeah.
Yes, Tyrone Davis. But I'm curious, between ACT and going to New York and then out here working at Chapman University, were there any defining moments in your career that just kind of shaped you as an artist, that kind of, or even changed the trajectory of how you approach your work? Just curious about that. Or any challenging moments that kind of shifted you a little bit in your journey.
Yeah, for sure. The one is, like I said, when I came out of school, I remember I bombed an audition hard for it because I have ADHD and I have sight issues, and I might even, I don't know about this, I might even be a tad bit dyslexic. I've never been tested for that, but getting stuff off of the page can be a little bit difficult for me. It's not now that initially I thought it was more severe than it was, but really what it is, Ciera, is I get very anxious and then I start jumbling words. That's actually what actually happens. And so there was a Shakespeare audition. And I was preparing for this thing. I was working on it, and I thought I was in a good place. And then I got in front of the people, and I just bombed. And it just tore me apart. And I was just like, I was ready for this. To the point where I bombed, to the point that the casting director that brought me in, she had to be like, I was like, man, I started getting really nervous. She was like, okay, just hold on, just talk to me. And I did that, and I just felt terrible. And I was just like, geez, I can't believe I messed this up. Then the next day, someone reached out to me. I'm like, you know what? There's this Nigerian-American filmmaker that's looking for an actor for this show. The next day, and I got this email for it. And then that ended up being the role I was telling you about, Alaska Land, was by Chinonye Chukwu. Chinonye is actually the director of, she directed Till with Daniel Headwell. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, I feel like we're Facebook friends, but does she go by
Probably.
Chi-Chi?
I don't think so. Nonye,
Okay.
she goes by Nonye. Yeah.
Okay.
You're more than likely Facebook friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was that also, again, because that was something it just showed me how valuable my experience was, my own experience. That's the thing that got me there. Then, it's just I don't do well with the whole industry rigmarole, right? I don't do well with. It's not that I don't do well with working with agents, managers, and with cast directors or whatever. I'm a very amenable person. I'm a very amenable person to work with. It's not that. It's I don't. The idea of going out and seeking them out just zaps away any type of creative impulse or curiosity in me. It just makes me. It just goes back to that. What it does is it just accelerates, or it just amplifies a validation seeking thing in me. And so I just hated it. I just stayed away from it. So that spurred me to start creating my own work. When I realized, I was like, I just don't like doing all these things. I just don't like doing it. And so I started doing web series, and then I went to UCB, and I started doing stuff at UCB, and I started doing sketches, and I realized, I was like, oh, you're really good at sketches. Like the person who was teaching the class was like, oh, you're good at this. And so I started doing satirical sketches, and I started doing short films and all these things, and it really showed me how much of a writer and producer I am. right? Because what does a producer have to do? This, you got to make things happen. That's really your job, is figure out how to make things happen, figure out how to mobilize people, figure out how to take a project to beginning to end. And I realized, like, I was like, oh, I'm really good at this. And I'm also a really good leader in that capacity. All those things that I found doing that. Yeah. And then the third thing I also say is The Frogs, which is a podcast with my homie. It's a theater podcast where we talk theater and we talk shit, you know what I'm saying? The idea of it is to get people, so theater is not so, it is not so esoteric. The conversation is not so esoteric. It's like more, it's more relatable. And that being over here in LA has just, again, it was a shift within me, and it also goes into The Frogs, because it started to become so much more important to me to be of service. So much more important to me to make sure to be doing things from for and with the community. And I say that something that I came up with the other day is to say that, like, I don't do things for the industry. I do things for the audience. Right?
Yeah.
It's for the people. So I would say those three things very much kind of shape me.
I love that. And then you're talking about giving back and being a service. And so, I know you teach at Chapman, and you're also lending your talents over to the Michael's Daughter Foundation, working at Barry J. Nydorf, at our juvenile facilities. What has that experience been like for you? And I'm curious because who was that? I was talking to Jeliza, who works with our organization, and her whole thing was saying, I don't want to make you change your answer, but I like talking, so don't mind me. But her whole thing was that she said that she never saw teaching as like a side hustle or a second line job or like something separate from her, that she always saw it like a part of her artistic journey because it's part of her legacy as well. And so I'm curious with you, and I feel like the reason why I'm jumping on this because you said the word service. Teaching in general for you, how does that play in your journey? And then also, like, what has the experience been like working at Barry J. Nydorf with the Michael's Daughter Foundation?
Yeah, when I was in, I started teaching when I was at ACT. We were doing, we actually, there was a project that the Black students, created, called the NIA Project. And we would, provide art services throughout the city to, Black and Brown communities. And then I started doing teaching artist work when I was in New York. And initially, Ciera, I didn't like it. If I'm being honest, I didn't, because I was always just the things where you're always trying to, as opposed to being where you are. You're trying to do things. Like I don't want to be teaching. I want to be acting. I can't want you to act. So it was. I hate to say, I don't like. I didn't. It's not that I just approached it like a side hustle. It wasn't that, but it was definitely something I felt like I was doing on the side. And it wasn't till I came out here again when my focus started to shift, and it started teaching at Chapman. One, I think I like teaching in either collegiate settings or the settings like the way that we're teaching at Michael's Daughters or something like that. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But when I came out here, I started to kind of shift, and my approach just was very much so like, okay, well, I need to be. This is for them. So this is for the students. So how can I be of the best service for the students? And that was a journey. But then I started reaching that when taking that approach, I realized that, Ciera, it's all the same thing. I'm whether I'm teaching, writing, producing, acting, it's all working on storytelling from different angles, from the different crafts. So when I'm teaching, it's like a laboratory to me. I get to see, like, okay, well, okay, I've been thinking about this thing. How does this work out? And then, the students test it out and like take the information. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Okay. So then I apply that to my work, right? When I'm acting or when I'm directing or something like that. And so then from the standpoint of working at the Michael Daughter Foundation at Barry Nydorf, that kind of like really concretized everything. That really, I always knew it wasn't about me, but that really shows me the power of the work we do, and like the necessity of the work that we do, the necessity of being able to help people tell their own stories, the necessity of being able to encourage delving into your imagination, because those young men, they in those situations, they need their imagination. They need to be able to imagine beyond these walls. They need to be able to take be able to kind of tell their story, their own story in a way that is like uplifting, and it's not just relegated to the things that they've heard about themselves in their own life, right? And I want to say it's not always easy.
No,
It's
not at
not.
all.
It's challenging sometimes, but it's one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever done in my life. Because it can't. Again, it's a gift. It really is a gift to get out of your own way and to leave your ego at the door, and to really be of service. It helps you to be in the moment. Again, it's all the same. It all kind of powers the same thing. Once you realize, oh, I'm not making it about myself, I can actually be in the moment. If I am, again, the focus is on the other person. If this is what we know as actors, put the focus on the other person. And in those situations, you have to do that. So yeah, it is. I've already said it. It's one of the most meaningful things I've ever done in my life.
Yay! I love hearing that. And there's so many things that you said too that I wish we had another hour, but it's just, I mean, I think I relate to that as an actor too. You were saying that early on, you were like, I'd rather be acting. I don't want to be doing this. And, and that was like across the board with like when I was waiting tables or catering. And it's so funny because I literally just shared a video on Instagram about this. And, the main reason why I got into teaching was because I wanted to find something more fulfilling. But when I look back at like even the restaurant jobs and the catering jobs, and even when I used to work for, car shows and stuff, if I really would have approached a lot of that stuff with the mindset of like gratitude and being of service, it wouldn't have been so painful. I wouldn't have gone in like so full of angst, and, maybe some things could have changed, in my life in some ways. And in some ways, things did change in my life. Like I met Spike Lee while waiting tables, and like ended up working with him down the line. But it's just, I'm in my life, I'm starting to learn, and it sounds like some of the things that you were saying maybe resonate, but I am starting to learn that, how you approach one thing is how you approach everything. And if you're like going through life angstful and miserable and me, I, then like all that's going to be reflected back to you in various ways. But then when you shift it on its head and say, hey, I want to be of service, I want to connect, I want to form community, then things change, and so yeah, I mean, it's definitely a beautiful thing. I mean, with the Michael Slaughter Foundation, especially in that space, it's a challenging thing to grasp for anybody, I feel like, because a lot of this stuff is really like high concept self-help stuff, but when you really break it down into bite size and really go in with the mindset of service, and then also flipping it on its head in terms of like, hey, how can I as a teacher go in and help these young people shift the stories that they're telling about themselves, and shift the way that they see themselves, and create from a space from there, rather than like diving into like their history, their pain, their wounds. Let's start on a clean slate. Like, who do you want to be, and who do you want to present when you go out into the world? So I don't know. I'm spitballing here, just saying all these things, but I don't know. The things that you said just really resonated with me, and I'm happy that you took that journey to discover that, and I'm happy that you're working with the organization now to do that.
I love it. I do. And shout out to my big-headed teaching partner, Rashida. Always got something to say. No, I love Rashida. Rashida's
She's great.
like a sister to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah,
you two work so well together too, just by the way. So
yeah. She is definitely the yin to my yang. I love working with her, and as much as we can work together, because she also has just so much heart and passion.
Yeah, I see that. I see that for sure. Oh, okay. I mean, you saw I have like 100 questions here, and we can go a few more minutes. Gosh, where else do we go though? Because I can just start asking. How about this?
Yeah, let's see. You do have a bunch of questions.
I do, but it's like it's fun. It's fun to just kind of pick from them.
I know. And I know exactly.
What's something that a student has taught you along your journey?
I think what the students taught me, something that I've had to learn my whole life is 99% of the time it's not personal. It's not you.
Yeah.
And as a teacher, you have to take that approach. You just have to, because if you don't, then A, you're not going to be serving them, and B, you're going to constantly go home, with just this just feeling attacked. Because it's not about you. I've had the students that have taught me the most have been the most difficult ones. I remember last semester, I got, we were working on relationship. I was working on relationship with these students and talking about how the relationship has to be specific. And it was a sibling situation. And she was like, one sibling was helping the other sibling work out or something. And I asked her, okay, well, why? Because she's my sister. Okay, okay, but still, why? Because I love my sister. Okay, well, what do you love about her? I just love my sister. And so we're going back and forth, and then we got in this whole conversation about like things I won't get into. But the point is like she became really, really kind of combative. And at the end of the class, I didn't become combative with her, but I just kind of, how you just kind of end it. Well, like at the end of the day, this is what it, this is what it is. You can take it or leave it. And she walked out, and initially I was just like, I can't believe she said this. It's so disrespectful, blah blah blah. And then as I started to kind of calm down, the empath in me goes, but Alex, think about from her perspective. This is an intro to acting class. She's in front of all these people. She's not used to being vulnerable in this way. And then you probably like ran into you like unexpectedly, like you stepped on some type of landmine. From that position, like she's not going to be able, or it's going to take a very, very, very mature person to be able to like to come back from that. Like you have issues coming back from that. And I just said to myself, like, it's not her responsibility to come back to class the next day and correct. It's my responsibility to figure out a way to shift, to make the space feel. I'm using this word safe, but I even think they could be more specific because I think that actually, yeah, you're not always necessarily going to feel safe, but like
like
in
supportive.
certain ways, supported. Yeah, I got to make sure I make her feel supported, and that approach again, that is it's taught me so much to not take things personal.
Yeah, that's a lesson for me. I've had to learn for sure on that journey, and even recently, I mean, I don't know if y'all tuned in to the last time I came to that class, but that young person cursed me out
Yeah.
from hell to high water, and when they first came to the program, and that was hard. That was rough, and I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot, and but then I had to take a step back and be like, oh, they came back to the class, they signed back.
Wow.
They signed back up for it, and that's really interesting.
It's wild.
And they have a choice. They have a choice to go to different classes or not even go to the class. And they came back to our class after cursing me out. So I was like, maybe there's something there. I mean, we know that there's something happening under the surface, and it's all yet to be
But
determined. And
that's a
so to
powerful
be,
thing, though. That's a powerful thing, and it takes a lot, and it takes growth to be able to go, yeah, this person did do that. This person did do that. But if, how can I, they did that because there's a need there that's not being
mm-hmm,
met.
yeah,
So how can I assist them to get their need? And it's not, I definitely do not always do it well or perfectly, but I am starting to be, I have become very appreciative of being able to attempt. The attempt is very
yeah,
important. I
yeah.
came up with something that was real that I thought it was like really, really emotional. I mean, I was really, really romantic the other day. I was just thinking about like love and monogamy and all these things. It's like, what the greatest kind of expression of love to me is saying that for you, I will make the attempt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every single day, I'm going to choose to make the attempt to try, Like I just thought that that's such a like a beautiful thing to
Yeah,
do, right? Because it's both saying that I'm going to be here, and it's also it's also accepting the fact that like there are things that are out of my control,
yeah.
but I'm
Mm-hmm.
still going to try with you every single day. It's
Yeah, I
something.
mean, I think that's the whole key phrase of like holding space, right? It's like
Mm,
you're creating space for you to just be with someone and
mm,
trying to like be present with that person. And
I don't know. I could be wrong, but I just feel like that speaks volumes, with especially for young people and especially for the young people that, we're working with right now. Like, say, all right, cool. There's things going on, you might give me attitude or whatever, but like the fact that you're here and I'm going to be here in this space with you for an hour and a half, I think it just speaks volumes. It creates that support. It creates that sometimes that validation, that being seen, that just connection that I think that a lot of them are craving sometimes and not knowing how to like fully get that, So yeah. Oh, so good. Okay, so we're gonna dive into these rapid fire questions,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm gonna ask you 3 more questions after that, and then we're gonna wrap one up. Okay, so rapid fire questions. If you can answer them in 1 word, 1 sentence, or less, that would be great. All right.
Okay.
So here we go. Number 1. Who inspires you the most?
Inspires me, my mom.
Oh, I love that. Okay, nice. If you weren't a creative, what would you be?
I feel like I would be a journalist or an activist.
Okay. All right. You kind of are those things.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool.
Thank you.
All right. What's the first thing you do when you wake up?
First thing I do when I wake up, unfortunately, is look at my phone. But then I start. Then I'm trying to get out of that because I was good before, anyway. But then what I'll start doing is I'll start writing.
Okay. Nice. Cool. Do you have a dream project?
I do, actually. It's actually a dream. You mean a dream? Huh? Because I have a dream project that, like, of course, something I want to do in the future, and then I have something I want to do right now. Which one do you want?
Something like if, $500 million dropped in your lap right now, and you can either create or be in it or whatever, what would that project be?
Oh, that's easy. Something epic on the like a black epic world on the scale of like Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings.
Nice. Yes. Okay. Ooh. All right. I like that. Let's put that out there in the universe. Can you finish a sentence for me? I wish creatives would practice a little more. Link.
I wish creatives would practice a little more community building as opposed to power seeking through the industry.
I like it. Okay. Those are rapid fire questions. And now I'm going to ask you. So basically, what I've been doing is having the previous guest leave a question for the next guest.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah. So the last guest, they asked if you could look back and tell your younger self something, what would it be?
I could look back and tell my younger self something. Go towards your individuality. Go towards the thing that makes you unique. The things that you are ashamed of make you unique. Go towards that.
I love that. Now, do you have a question that you'd like to leave for the next guest?
The question I want to leave for the next guest would be, if you could change one thing in this current world, only one, what would it be?
I like that. Ooh, okay. Ooh, I can't wait to ask that. Okay. And then just last few right here. So this is called the In Trive. It stands for the Inspired Thriving Tribe. And I'm curious to you, what does thriving look like to you? And how do you try to inspire others?
Thriving looks like being able to provide for myself, my loved ones, and my community. And when I say provide, I had this one OG a long time. It's like, if I have shelter, if I have food, if I have water, if I have community, I'm good. And being able to provide those things in a quality manner to myself, my family, my community, while doing creative work at my highest level.
I like that. Dang, okay. I want to talk to you for like 3 more hours, but we can't. It'll come. It'll get there.
To be continued.
Yeah. To be continued. All right. And I know you touched a little bit on the frogs, but where else can people find you? And is there anything else you want to plug?
Okay. All right. The frogs. Yeah, you can holler at the frogs at you can find the frogs podcast on Instagram. That will be _frogs_podcast. And you can find us on Apple Music. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Amazon Podcasts. And anything else that I want to plug? Not right now, but you know what? There is a project I told you about, something I want to talk to you about offline.
Okay.
It's gonna be exciting, y'all. It's gonna be exciting.
Okay. All right. Well, we gonna take it offline. So and talk about that. All right. I like it. All right, Alex, look, this was amazing. And again, I wish I could talk to you for 3 hours, make this podcast 3 hours long, but we'll probably have to just do a part 2 one day. So,
I'm down with the part 2. I'm always at the talk to Madam Cece.
Madam Maven, what else did you ask me?
Maven Cece.
You're like, you said something, that text message, you're like, can I call you this? And I was like, I'm going to call you. So,
I know. Yeah, that was funny.
Anyway, but yes, we can do this, and hopefully people down in the comments let us know if you want a part 2. If there's any other questions that you want me to ask Alex for a part 2, like, let's do it. Let's dive in. But until then, Alex, thank you so much for your time. Oh, you got something you want to say?
You know what? One more thing. I'm trying to get in that show, Pop the Balloon. So if anyone has knows a way to get on there, I think I would do well. Y'all.
I think so too. Y'all, he's tall. So, he's easy on the eyes. So let's get him on the Pop the Balloon. Why not? Let's do it. I love it. Thank you so much, Alex. All right, y'all. You know where to find him. And let's rock it out. Thank you so much for visiting the In Trive.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
All right, no problem.
Well, wasn't that such a great interview? I love working with Alex, and I'm so happy that you were able to stop by and listen in on his journey and hopefully take a few little tidbits from what he shared and applied it to your creative journey. And now listen, if you want to get more content like this, you gotta do it. You gotta hit the like and subscribe button down below. And then also head on over to the intrive.com, where we have more articles, podcast episodes, resources, and courses all for you. So please head on over there and check it out. And if you want to be the first to know about our events, you got to sign up to the mailing list. In the mailing list, we will email you about our upcoming events. And so that way you get first dibs on what's to come. So please make sure to like and subscribe. Head on over to theintribe.com, sign up for the mailing list, and we'll see you over there. But until then, please know that I am a champion for artists and that I'm right here walking along beside you on this creative journey, and I am rooting for you every step of the way. So please make sure to keep thriving, stay inspired, and know that I love you and I'm your cheerleader. All right, take care. Bye.